What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Invest Iowa. Today I have Steve with me, and we're lucky to have someone with as much experience as he has. Originally from China, all the way now in Phoenix. Thank you so much for coming, Steve. I appreciate you taking the time to get me the opportunity to pick your brain a little and just figure out why you're so successful and what motivates you and what drives you to behave in the way that you behave.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. And I got a chance to check out, I looked you up a little bit before I jumped on. And one part I really liked about your bio was I interview people that don't reply to your DMs. So, uh, you learn from real estate leaders. So, appreciate what you're doing, hustling out there and gathering information. So I'm excited to be here.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, originally where that came from, it's just usually like people like yourself or people that they get too many questions, like help me invest. It's like, what does that mean? Like you're not providing anything to them. The podcast is a good way to me to provide something to you in return for being able to have that conversation with you and being able to ask those questions that the people don't know how to go about, because they're not giving
Right.
anything in return, and it's not you're expecting anything in return. It's just the way the society works, right?
That's the way it is.
Yeah, but that leaves aside your story, man. How do you describe yourself as a person?
I describe myself as a serial entrepreneur. There are shades of shiny object syndrome. I want to do anything and everything. And you kind of see that in my career. I've tried so many different things. One way I introduce myself is I've been in real estate for 16 years, and if there's a way to fail in it, I've done it. Right. So the way I describe myself is a person that is curious, wants to try all these different things. And I would say today, better focused than ever before, but it takes a lot of lack of focus to realize how important focus is.
How old are you now?
43.
43. And when did you started your entrepreneurial career?
I quit my job in 2007. So even though I was buying rental properties and this and that in 2006, I officially quit my job in 2007. So I would say the entrepreneurial journey started in May of 07 in real estate, which when I started the realtor side was in hindsight a really terrible idea, but that's what I did.
Okay. One of the things that I want to mention is that you said that you were from China, and
Mm-hmm.
as you were migrating here, you were born in Italy.
Yes.
That's insane. How has that played a role into who you become as a person nowadays?
I think it's played a massive role into the character I am today. If you listen to our one of our shows, Pardon the Disruption, I might sound like an angry crank, right? I might sound really anti-government, whatever. But here's the background. So my grandparents on both sides were merchants in the Fujian province in China. It's the most southern east part, if you can describe it, it'd be like Florida, right? For China. And so we were doing fine. And then one day this guy comes along and he inspires everyone in the country to say, hey, look, the reason why you guys are unsuccessful is because the more successful people are taking all the resources. And so he inspired a whole country, a whole revolution. Of course, what he was preaching was communism, right? And so he won, and my grandparents fled China, and they lost everything, right? They had businesses, they fled China, and they lost everything, and they moved to Vietnam and rebuilt everything from scratch. From there, they had my parents, right, and all their siblings. And then one day, someone comes along. It's like, hey, the reason why you guys are all suffering is because all those people that have more resources and more money than you are taking advantage of you. And so communism took over again. And at this point, my grandparents, my grandfather on my dad's side had become a jeweler, done well as a with the jewelry business. My grandfather on my mom's side had a store, kind of like a convenience store, a goods store, as well as he was buying and selling metal, right? Used metals. So again, they rebuilt everything in a new country, and they lost everything again due to communism, right? And so my parents fled Vietnam on boats, like not great boats that at some points were like leaking, right? There were sharks, there were pirates, like like real pirates that were like murdering, raping, stealing from these people on boats.
Right.
Well, my parents were on those same boats. The difference was because they were later, they came along later, they were armed, right? So there were people with guns on these boats to fend off pirates.
Yeah.
They fled. They went to Malaysia. Malaysia said, if you guys come on shore, we will shoot you. So they were pushed back out. Um, and then somewhere along the way, the whole world saw this humanitarian crisis that occurred when the Vietnam War ended. They, an Italian Navy ship picked my parents up. I was born in a refugee camp in Italy. And then 7 months old, we all came as a family to the United States, and everything I've known since then has been in the United States. So if you're asking how that has shaped me, I would
Wow.
say having your family lose everything twice due to communism is the reason why it sounds so extremely capitalistic.
Wow. That's insane.
Yeah.
And this was not too long ago. I mean, we're talking about 40, maybe 50 years, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was, they left in 78. I was born in 79. So yeah, it was less, it was about, 44, 45 years ago. So,
Wow. And what does your family think about the entire communism thing?
well, it's kind of funny how this all works. Like, I think everyone forgets, right? Because I have cousins here. Same story, right? Because we have the same grandparents, same story,
Yeah.
but they forget. And so, they think that we should maybe increase taxes. Maybe we should help out and this and that, right? Maybe we should have a bigger government. And it's like, how did you guys forget the lessons that our grandparents have paid twice? But, that's neither here nor there. It's just, I think as humans, we're just designed to forget and designed to suffer. And we choose suffering. We choose, we choose suffering because if there's no suffering, then we can't appreciate, the good things.
Wow. That's deep.
Yeah.
What do you think makes you successful? Do you see any traits when you were growing up that separate you from the rest?
Yeah, I would say there's a couple different things. I say first, I'm always looking for the next edge, and I think that also contributes to the shiny object syndrome. But I'm always looking for the next edge. I'm always looking for some advantage that I can take advantage of, that I can leverage open, right, to open more doors, and that's helped me in my career. The other thing is I'm ultra competitive, um, and I think that being that ultra competitive, the flip side of being ultra competitive is that you refuse to fail. You refuse to lose. And so you can't keep me down, right? So like we have adversity. We face adversity all the time as entrepreneurs. And when you face that adversity, what do you do about it? And I'll just give you something tiny, something small, right? Something people don't even notice. So we had someone come on for our show for Pardon the Disruption, and it was a friend of mine who happened to be in town. So we set him up in the studio over here next door, right? In the middle of a show, because he just brings his laptop dies. So there's four panelists. Of the four panelists, one just goes dark, right? Because his laptop dies. And then the next scene, you see me leaving my seat to go help him out. We're running a live show. We've got people watching the show, and then just two people are just gone, right? So I knew where the extension cord was,
Yeah.
because we just had a quarterly strategic meeting. So I went into the storage to grab the extension cord, to give it to him so he can plug back in. It's not a big deal. It's such a minor detail, right? But it's a
Yeah.
microcosm of all the things that go wrong every single day.
Right.
What do you do about it? Do you let it beat you up, or do you keep going? So I would say probably the worst was, I remember specifically as a realtor many years ago, 2009, I think, was, I had just a few in escrow. I think like maybe like four or five, maybe four. And the Arizona Republic, which is the main paper for Arizona, talks like in giant like headlines, like how the real estate market is crashing, right? And they weren't wrong, right? They weren't wrong. But that day, I had three buyers call me and say, "Hey, Steve, I want to cancel escrow." So, you know, this money that I'm relying on for my family, it just
Gone.
disintegrates, right? It's just in thin air. And so, what can I do? I can cry about it, or I can figure it out. And so you just have to figure it out. You just have to make it work. So
Right.
that's the story of entrepreneurship. So I think that part of being ultra competitive, refusing to lose, also means you're going to find a way. And that, I think that's helped a lot with uh I wouldn't say success, but helped us get to where we are today.
Right. You tell me that you jump all over the place with trying to do different things at the same time. How did you come across real estate?
Like everybody else, you pick up a copy of Rich Dad Poor Dad. So you read it, right? So I want to
Yeah.
say like 04, 05, I read it, and I'm watching the real estate market as an engineer. I'm watching the real estate market. It's like there's just no way the market can keep going up. It's just impossible. And it just kept going up. I was like, all right, well, I guess there is a way. I guess it can't just keep going up, right? And
Yeah.
so I got into real estate in 07, and well, turns out there's no way it can keep going up. But
Right.
yeah, like everyone else, Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Wow. Rich Dad Poor Dad. You have no idea the amount of people that had gotten started with that book.
Oh yeah, I mean everyone, right? That's the book that got. I mean, talk about like Helen or Helena. The face that launched 1,000 ships. Right, that book launched thousands of
Yeah.
careers.
But so you were a realtor. A realtor is really the first contact with real estate that you made.
Well, we were buying properties, but then I met a broker while we were buying properties, and I was like, man, like this guy just kind of does whatever. I mean, he wears a suit, but he's wearing flip flops. He just seems super chill. He smokes cigarettes, but he seems to be living a pretty good life. I was like, and he's a realtor, right? I was like, what exactly do you do? He's like, I'm a realtor. He's like, what's that life like? Oh, I just hang out and talk to people all day. Okay, all right. How much do you make doing that? He's like, easily well over six figures. I was like, well over six figures, huh? Well, I'm an engineer. I got a master's degree, and I'm not making six figures. So we got to do something about this. So I was like, well, like what would it take to learn from you? Is like you go get your real estate license. I'll teach you everything I know. So in 2.5 weeks from that dinner, I'll go get my real estate license. And right after I get my real estate license, I submit my 2 weeks notice at Intel, and I go work for him. So in a matter of like 4.5 weeks from when I had dinner with him, I was working for him.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's how I got into the realtor side, which, I talk about shiny object syndrome. Rich Dad Poor Dad said, buy assets, buy real estate. It didn't say work in real estate. It didn't say become a realtor.
Big facts. Yeah.
Right.
It's a
And
big difference.
So what did I do? I went to go become a realtor, which was not what I should have done. Right. And I have no regrets, but I do refer to, my realtor years as like the lost decade. Right. Because for 9 years, I was focused on the wrong thing. I was focusing on serving clients versus buying real estate.
Yeah. You're a service provider.
Service provider, right? You're the guy that's selling, you're the shovel guy. You're selling, selling shovels. But man, like if I had to do it all over again, I would have just been buying real estate in 07. Like, man, how great was real estate in 09 and 10 and 11, right? Like completely dropped the ball on this one.
Yeah. So you came with that realization. What was the course of action after you stopped being a realtor?
After I stopped being a realtor, I started a podcast, Real Estate Disruptors, started actively wholesaling.
Yeah.
Reluctant flipper. We still flip here and there. And then a year, like I was wholesaling on the side from 2012 on, but in 2018 is when we started actively wholesaling. And in 2019 was when people started saying, hey, Steve, we love what you're doing as far as sales training goes.
Teach me.
Or your sales process. Can you show me how to sell like you? Which I thought, it's humorous to me because my whole career I've been awful at sales. But, the sales skills we picked up along the way, people liked our approach. So now we have a sales training organization.
Okay. Interesting. What was your first encounter with wholesale? And what would you say is the biggest difference between being a wholesaler and being a realtor?
My first encounter was in 2012. So I'm talking to a homeowner. So as a realtor, I was doing your home sold guarantee or I'll buy it. That was my marketing pitch, right? And so we had all these people calling us because they wanted their home sold. This is how you find motivated homeowners as a realtor. And I remember this appointment, and they're like, hey, I don't want you to buy my house in 4 months. I want you to buy my house today. It's like, no, you want me to buy your house in 4 months? Because if I buy it today, it's gonna be a lot less than what I would pay in 4 months. They're like, I don't care. I was like, no, I don't think you understand. Like, if we list it on the market, you're gonna walk away with X. If I buy your house for cash, you're gonna walk away with Y. They're like, yeah, we're fine with Y. It's like, what? Okay. And so the very first house I bought, and it wasn't a wholesale. We bought it cash, but we bought it and then we wholetailed it before wholetailing was a thing, right? Because 2012, no one was talking about wholetailing.
Right.
So I bought that house, and then I had another appointment, the same thing. I bought that person's house, and then that happened a few more times. We were buying more people's houses, and then we ran out of money. We just didn't have any more money, and it was great because like we were profiting the whole time. We were tying up capital, and so I started wholesaling, right? And so this guy Jamil Damji calls me 2014, and he's like, "Hey, I want to buy your property." So I sold it to him. He's like, "If you have any more deals, send them to call me first." It's like I did. So I started wholesaling him, and I was so happy making $3,000 right? Wholesale fees. So ignorant to the world of wholesaling, and so yeah, I mean that's when I figured out. That's when I got decent at wholesaling. I wasn't good at it, but that's when I got decent at it.
Okay. Were you offering different strategies? Was it a cash offer, and then if not, a sub two deal, a credit finance deal?
We only had two tools: list it or buy it. Those were our
Hmm.
two tools, right?
Okay.
Hey, when I come over today, I just want to figure out what's going on in your situation, figure out how we can best help you, right? And after a little bit of a while, hey, it seems to me you're trying to get the most amount of money for your home. Like, yep, great. Let me show you how we do that. And I would pivot to a listing presentation. Hey,
Hmm.
it seems to me like you want this taken care of like now. They're like, yeah, okay. Well, let me show you how we do that with a cash offer. So
Hmm.
I came into every appointment with just two tools. And we only had two tools, I want to say, until about 2018.
Wow. But didn't that limit you? Didn't you lose some appointments because of that? Only two options?
No, not really, because at that
No?
time it was fine, right? Because creative wasn't really that big a deal.
Gotcha.
Did we lose some deals? Absolutely, but I mean, creative. I don't know how many deals I lost because I didn't have that creative tool in my belt. I would say the biggest thing we lost in the last few years was not being good at novations. I would say we
Hmm.
lost a large chunk of cash because we didn't know how to do novations. But not doing creative, I mean, I don't really lose too much sleep over that. I think it wouldn't have been between 2014 and 18 where it would have been a big deal. I would say again, the biggest regret is not knowing how to buy houses prior to 2011. That's that's where the pain is.
Yeah. But I guess that's a learning lesson that you now take and apply to today's market.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. How do you grow a successful podcast?
Well, it's a little different today than it was when I started in 18. So when I started my podcast, no one was doing Facebook Lives for a podcast, right? Nobody. And not that many people were doing live in studio. So when I started my podcast, I'm just looking at it, right? There's Sean Terry out there. He already has a podcast. There is Joe McCall. He's got a podcast. There are these bigger pocket guys, right? Like everyone has these podcasts already. It's like, how do I separate myself in 2018? Right. That was a question I asked myself.
Mm,
So there were three different things we did. First, we went live on Facebook, right? Like I said, no one was really doing that at that time, right? Now StreamYard is huge, but at the time, no one was doing that in 18. I made everybody fly to Phoenix for the show, right? If you didn't want to fly to Phoenix, that's fine. We're not going to do real estate disruptors. So you have to fly to Phoenix. The first big name that came out here was Rafael Vargas. Second giant name was Max Maxwell, right? But once that happened, all right, if you want to be in the show, you have to fly here. If you don't want to fly here, it's no big deal. You're just not going to do the show.
yeah.
Third thing, oh, and part of the second thing was the people we had on the show were already influential, right? Again, the great thing about being in Phoenix is all the gurus are already here. So it wasn't really that hard. It's like, hey, you have to be in Phoenix because most of the gurus are already here.
Yeah.
And the third thing was we've always had a drum that we were beating. And that drum is creating 100 millionaires, right? So, like, if you listen to the show, you're part of the people that we want to help become a millionaire. So,
Mm,
like, you want to listen to the show because you want to become a millionaire. So, we were consistently beating that drum. We were at the time, only ones making you come to the studio and also making you come to do a Facebook Live. So the fact that no one was doing lives and no one was doing in studio set me far apart back then. Today, that's not a competitive advantage. So I would have to figure out what I would do for competitive advantage today. But back then, that was the competitive advantage.
Okay. And then what do you see the podcast going now and for the future?
I mean, I think for the foreseeable future, everything's fine, right? We still do real estate disruptors. We've got Part in the Disruption. We've got Certainty Talks. Come September, October, we're going to be launching a fourth one, Sales Disruptors. That'll be the first show where I am not the main talent. We have someone else going to be the main talent. And then at some point, I think real estate disruptors will probably just evolve into disruptors, which would mean it's just business, right? So everything we learn in real estate translates extremely well to every other industry, right? You have acquisition managers, well, that's just an outside salesperson. We got lead managers, that's just an inside salesperson. We got disposition managers. I mean, in realtor we talk they're buyer agents, right? But you know, it's a relationship manager or as a relationship person, right? So like a transaction coordinator, that's just administrative.
Right.
So everything we learn as far as sales, marketing, P&Ls, balance sheets, operations, it all translates really well in other industries. So maybe in 2024, maybe 2025, instead of real estate disruptors, it's just disruptors.
Okay. That makes sense. So you're planning on doing that transition for businesses in general?
Businesses in general.
Huh, that's amazing. Yeah, I could see how it's so relatable. I have a maybe more of a personal question for
Sure.
And this one's gonna be very relatable to what I'm doing currently. For what would you tell your self, your beginner self who started a wholesale, who's done, let's say 20 deals, that is trying to get the foot in the door, just trying to do this full time, that what would you tell them to do, tell them to avoid? What will be that conversation like?
So I'll answer this question. Before I do, we did an entire hour episode on this on Certainty Talks about how to go full-time in real estate. So, you know, I'm just plugging Certainty Talks, how to go full-time real estate, because we literally did that show like 3 weeks ago. But what would I give? What advice would I give? Try a lot of different things. And the reason why I say this, because, you know, everyone says focus, right? Pick a lane. Try a bunch of different things, because the reality is we don't know what you like and you don't like. Everybody's different. I can pick up the phone all day and cold call, and I'll be totally fine. I have no issues with rejection. Okay. So I'm fine prospecting. Okay. I'm not good. I'm not organized, but I'm good at rejection all day. So maybe I would do cold calling. But maybe you hate being on the phones, right? Maybe you just really prefer highly efficient marketing and you're well funded. Well, then, you know, maybe you just do a really marketing heavy based business. Maybe you only do direct mail or PPC or TV. Or maybe you love people, love talking to people. Like, you're friends with everybody, but you have no desire to prospect or market. Okay. Or no desire to prospect, but no desire to spend money on marketing. Okay. Well, then you just call the realtors. You're just friends with them. Hey, you got a deal? Call me first. That's what Jamil does, right? You got a deal? Call me first. Right. And at the same time, you start raising capital. Maybe you're a person that likes money, right? You just know people with money. You connect the wholesalers or the realtors with deals to the guys with money, right? So you're a relationship person. So my point is, don't like go all in as I'm a wholesaler, I'm a realtor, right? That's speaking to myself, right? I'm a flipper, I'm a whatever. Like, don't go all in on any one identity, because once you do, you kind of pigeonhole yourself. What you want to do is figure out who you are, understand what you like, figure out what your superpower is, and then spend as much time and energy as possible doing your superpower.
Okay.
So it's such a superfluous answer. It's not like a go do this kind of answer, because it really depends on who you are, what your resources are, what your preferences are, right? Do you have a lot of time? Do you have a lot of energy? Do you have a lot of money? Do you have a lot of relationships?
Right.
I don't know. And we can't figure out what to do until we know what your resources are and then we know what you like.
Right.
It's so easy to say like, oh, it's easy, right? Like, hey, there's no problem. Go to title company, go grab a list, go cold call, go drive for dollars, go this, go that. But not that's so one sided. But if you pay attention, you look in real estate, everyone is successful in real estate in their own way. No, it's not like we have a million people that are really good at cold calling, or we
Right.
got like 1,000 people that are excellent at door knocking. It's not.
Right.
Everyone has a different business. Pace is sub 2, right? Jamila's relationships. Um, Carlos Reyes, right? Social media.
What are
Like
you?
everyone, me,
Yeah.
mine right now, I mean, it's just sales. I would say sales and relationships. The one thing that's been really, really fortunate for myself is that I am who I am, whether you like it or not. And so, because that's who I am very trustworthy. And so, because I'm trustworthy and credible, most people I call will take my call.
Mm,
Right. So, if I need something and I need to make a call, almost everyone will either answer it or return my call.
gotcha.
So, I would say I don't know if that's my superpower, but that's a luxury I have.
That's where you stand. How would you now then make that transition? What should a wholesaler have in mind, a realtor have in mind to do that transition between being a service provider and getting their first step in the door of real estate?
Um, Again, this is gonna be like a super like weird answer.
Yeah.
I think step one is you gotta figure out what's important to you. A lot of people on the realtor side, and I suspect a chunk of it inside the wholesaler side, fall into this industry. Like they didn't grow up and say, "Mom, Dad, I want to be a realtor when I grow up." Mom, Dad, I want to be a wholesaler when I grow up. Right? Sadly, most realtors become realtors because they sucked at a lot of different things. And like, well, I'm gonna be a realtor. Not all, but I think a lot of them. Likewise, wholesalers. It's not like I'm gonna grow up to be a wholesaler. It was like I saw this thing on YouTube. I saw this. I watched this infomercial. I saw this thing on Instagram, right? And so you kind of like fall into it, which is fine. Again, it's not a problem that you fall into it. Now that you've fallen into it, what do you truly want? Because what happens is we ask ourselves, how do I do my first deal? Okay. How do I do my second deal? Okay. How do I do one deal a month? All right. How do I do 3 deals a month? And these are all important questions. I'm not saying these are not good questions, but a better question might be, what's important to me? And if that's what's important to me, how do I get there? Is it doing 5 deals a month, 10 deals a month? Or is it doing maybe uh 1 deal a month, 2 deals a month, and then also work on one big transaction a year, right? I'm gonna do like, hey, I'm gonna do this right now, but I'm also gonna be building relationships over here so that I can have the opportunity to do bigger deals as well. So I think that what you want to do is you want to start off with what's important to you, and then figure out what your superpower is, which is a really hard thing because you got to do a lot of introspection, figure out what your superpower is.
Gotcha.
I've given that talk a couple of times. A lot of people found it really helpful, right? But you got to figure out what your superpower is. And once you figure out what your superpower is, then you can figure out how to go full time, right? And
Mm,
I know I apologize because I'm not giving any specific answers. I sound like like a lawyer. Well, it depends, right? But the
yeah.
reality is, it really does depend on you.
Yeah.
There's no one right answer.
What worked for you?
What worked for me is going all in, right? I quit my job, went full time, and I don't recommend this to other people necessarily, right? But I went full time. 2008 was my first full year in real estate. I lost $50,000 my first full year, meaning my expenses exceeded my revenue by $50,000 in 2008. Right? I lost
Wow.
$50,000. So what works for me is I just go all in and figure it out.
Yeah.
But again, that goes back to the beginning of the show where I talked about how I have a very strong ego, and that strong ego, the flip side of that is I refuse to fail. and I will keep failing until I figure it out.
Mm.
I don't recommend this for most people, right? Not most people can't tolerate that. But for me, I was totally fine maxing out my credit card, so I figured it out. Right? I had a
Mm.
wife who, God bless her, still married me as a person that failed, right? Who was working and even got a second job so that I can keep pursuing real estate.
Yeah.
So I don't recommend my path for most people, but if you look at a lot of the most successful people you meet, they've got horrible stories, not that different than what I just shared.
Gotcha. That makes so that's a good point that you need to keep in mind, because not everybody's built like that. Not everybody has the resilience, and is that ego what drives you to be the way that you are.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand why that's such a broad answer. Now, for the sales, how do you acquire that experience, and what do you think is so important about you being able to teach other people how to sell?
So I think sales is really important. I think it's really important everywhere in life, right? So before I even go into like the real estate component or the sales component, let me just share a story I had this morning.
That's good.
Um, this morning, my daughter, today's day 3 of volleyball tryouts. Volleyball tryouts for whatever reason is 6:15 in the morning. I don't know why. So I have to wake my daughters up at 5 a.m. go get ready for volleyball tryouts. And
Yeah.
she last night said, I don't want to go to tryouts tomorrow. I already know I'm not making the team. I'm not making the team. Right.
Yeah.
But I wake her up anyway. And as I talk to her, volleyball part sucks, but the volleyball part is just one thing in a long list of things that she's really frustrated and overwhelmed with at the exact moment. She's going to a new school, which is a lot more challenging of a school. Like the level, we went to the parent teacher conference last night. The amount of work required now is drastically different than last year, where she was at a different school.
Mm-hmm.
And we did this on purpose, right? Because I actually, in a parent teacher conference, I really appreciated how much planning they're forcing the kids to learn, right? The ability to learn, the ability to take notes, the ability to plan. Like they're teaching real life skills, right? So it's a harder school.
Yeah.
A lesser trained version of myself would have said something along the lines that I don't care what you're dealing with. Get up, get to school. You're going to tryouts.
Right.
That's how that's what my dad would have done with me.
Yeah.
But what I do, I sat down with her, talked through her emotions. I labeled, hey, it seems like you're really overwhelmed. Sounds like you're really stressed right now. Man, you're really going through a lot. What do you think we should do? How do you think we can get through this? What would you like to see from dad? Right? These are all questions that I'm asking her. These are the same exact questions we ask a homeowner. Same exact labeling statements. Seems like you're really overwhelmed with this. Man, you got to be really frustrated with this. You mean you've been dealing with this problem all by yourself? And even though you've got 3 siblings, they haven't helped you at all with this? Boy, that's got to be frustrating. Okay, well, how would you like us, how would you see this working out for you? Perfect world, how does this all work? What would you like me to do? How would you like me to help you? Same exact conversations we teach on how to work a homeowner through their situation and help them discover if it makes sense to work with us, but help them discover how to get through their situation.
Yeah.
Was the same exact conversation I had with my daughter this morning to help her get her head right for school.
So you're leading them to give you the answer that will ultimately be the one thing that you will be asking, but because it comes from them, then the conclusion and the motives for them to do that are completely different and are stronger.
Yeah, right. If it's my idea, you're like, whatever. If it's your idea, boy, we're gonna freaking do it. So in sales, I'm helping you realize why your current situation is unsustainable, right? I'm going to help you understand why this foreclosure that you think is not a big deal is a major freaking deal.
Yeah.
Right. So I might ask you, hey, like how many times have you talked to homeowners like, oh, foreclosure is no big deal? Like, it's kind of a big deal, right? So instead, it's like, hey, all right, well, this foreclosure, like, tell me more about it. Oh, your hours got cut back. Wow. Okay. Well, when was the last time your hours got cut back? So it was a couple of weeks ago. I was like, oh man, that really sucks. How long has it been going on? Man, it's been like 4 months that I've been dealing with this. Got it. What have you tried to make up for the lost wages. Well, I tried to get another job. How'd that go? Didn't work. What else you tried? I've asked family for help. How'd that go? That didn't work either. Man, that's got to be exhausting. Like, yeah, it is exhausting. Okay. Well, you know, what would you do if this doesn't work out? Who else knows about it? What's your wife saying about this whole situation? Right. And we're just opening these cans of worms. Like, man, my wife's frustrated. She's upset. Sometimes we fight about it. Hey, sometimes when we other homeowners we've talked to, when they're dealing with the bank and they're frustrated and their credit's going down, sometimes it affects their credit cards or their car payments. How is it affecting you in your world?
Yeah.
Right. How different is this conversation? Like, oh, he's in foreclosure. He's got to sell.
Wow, this is brilliant, dude. I feel like this is mastermind to me. It's absolutely, you're absolutely right.
Right. So we're getting this person to actively relive all the trauma, all the situation, the feelings they've been experiencing this whole time. And we're going to collapse it all in a very short period of time. So we're going to figure out like, this is a problem. And once we figure out this is a problem, okay, well, how do you see yourself getting out of this problem?
Yeah.
And the questions we ask hopefully leads them to a situation where they're like, man, I need to sell my house now. Can you buy my house? Right. And now they're closing me. I'm not closing them. They're closing me. Right. We're getting them to a mental state, an emotional state where they finally come to terms with the fact that this is an unsustainable situation and they need to fix it now.
How are you telling them that you are buying houses without telling them that you are buying houses?
Well, we tell them we're buying houses because we're marketing to them, right?
Okay.
So whether it's cold calling, texting, PPC, PPL, whatever, like it's clear that we're cash buyers.
Right.
There's no confusion as to whether we're cash buyers or not. The difference is when we show up, it's like, hey, I'm not sure I'm going to buy your house. Right? Like we see a lot of homeowners. There are literally thousands of people facing foreclosure in the Phoenix market today. We don't buy every house. What I like to do is ask you questions, figure out if there's a situation where we are able to help you or not. And in the end, all we're looking for is, if you don't like our offer, you don't like me, just tell me no. Likewise, if figure out this isn't going to work for us, I'm going to tell you no. And it makes sense for us to work together. What that means, we're going to take everything you and I talk about today, and we're going to put it in writing. Is that fair? All right. And that's a really, really short version of how we set the expectations for the appointment.
Gotcha.
But then we go through this whole deal about why you need to get out of the situation. And once we all agree you must get out of the situation, now we're going to talk about price. Because you are very different position on price because you're in a very different place mentally and emotionally, right? When foreclosure is no big deal, I want top of market.
Mm-hmm.
When you're like, holy cow, this sucks. I don't want to do this anymore. You don't need top of market. Mm-hmm. You're willing to take whatever you can get to get out of this awful situation.
Wow. That's really good. That's really good. Because I've had those conversations before. And I guess the big question is how you let the guard down, right? And it's always like as long as you prioritize that you're here to help and not here to throw them a cash offer, that's what most wholesalers, flippers are doing all over the place.
Yeah.
They're so pissed. They're tired of people calling them and telling them, hey, I'll buy your house for, a 50% discount. Like they don't want to do that. They can't even do that. And then having those conversations with them after they've gone through all of that, you definitely need some training for it. And I feel like this is the type of trainings that help you figure out what is it, how to ask the right questions so they come up with that answer themselves.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah, I mean, just think about it, right? Like, let's say you went to the doctor today and you're like, hey, what's it going to cost to fix my back? And he's like, 150 grand. A, how much do you care for that doctor? And B, what information did you get here? You got nothing, right? Like all you got was a doctor that treated you like a bag of money, right? Yeah. Or if you said, hey, doctor, I've got some back pains. Like, oh, no problem. Come back this afternoon. We're going to operate. You wouldn't work with that doctor. So why do we think it would work when they say, what's your offer? And then you make an offer.
Yeah.
It can't work because it wouldn't work if we were in the other position.
Yeah. It just wouldn't make sense. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Wow. I see what you're saying. Okay. Those analogies are becoming really good. I think at some point I'm gonna use them myself too.
Yeah. Great.
Do you work with foreclosures on a daily? Is this something that you do full?
I mean, we've worked with foreclosures. Right now we work with anybody and everybody that has to sell. So, we got a giant list from DataFlick. It's like 100,000 records. And then we got launch control, and we're gonna be texting the heck out of them. We've been cold calling these people forever, and then we're doing PPLs. So it's not pre-foreclosure specifically.
Gotcha.
It's people that we know must sell.
Motivated sellers. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay. And how is the process of developing those systems?
it is a long journey.
I'd imagine.
Right? Like, I mean, you start off with. I mean, I was using a realtor CRM a long time ago, right? We were using Commissions Inc., and then we were using Follow Up Boss, and then eventually we graduated to Podio. Now we're in Salesforce. It's this long journey, and then on top of that, making sure that everything happens correctly, and then it's not just enough to make sure everything happens correctly inside the system, inside the software, but then we have people, and people are irrational and inconsistent.
Yeah.
And so we got to get the people that are the most unreliable. And I'm not saying my people, I'm just saying as a species, we're all unreliable.
Yeah.
To get unreliable people to use the system correctly over time, that's a different battle.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I feel like a lot of people think that when they get into real estate, that like real estate is not a business. But once you scale past certain number, you're managing people. You're no longer managing properties.
Nope, exactly right. That is the last frontier. Whoever's the best at it is the most profitable, makes the most money. Whoever is the best at leading people, that is the most valuable skill.
And what do you think you have done correctly? And what do you think you have not done correctly and are struggling currently?
So the things I've done well is finding people that love what they do, right? So we got salespeople that love to sell, video guys that love to do video, graphics guy that love to do graphics, social media guys that love to do social media. Like they're already doing social media already, right? So like we're really good at finding people that love to do what they already do.
Mm-hmm.
We got people that are bought in, committed to the mission, committed to the values. So we got that. Where I would say we've struggled is when someone's not a good fit. Unfortunately, more often than not, we let them stick around longer than we should. Right. And that's the part, because I want everyone to win. I want to take care of everybody. My greatest weakness, my kryptonite, is that we let people linger around longer than we should.
Right. And it'll be false to say that no business has struggles and at all times, right?
Yeah.
What are you doing to combat that? What are you doing to change that?
We're having clear expectations meetings, saying, hey, here's what you're accountable for.
Mm-hmm.
Are we clear on that? Okay. What happens if you fail to meet this target? What should we do? So
Gotcha.
that's what we're doing about it. Have we done a great job with it? No. That's probably the area we need to improve the most.
What do you see your companies in general? What do you see yourself putting time into now that you have scaled to a point where like all the administrative tasks have been taken out, all the video editing tasks have been taken out, all of the side activities have gone out to other people? What are you prioritizing now as a business owner?
So my two, if I could break out my time, is in three areas. One is recording content, right? Like this. We run 3 different podcasts, so that's like 5 hours a week, right? So creating content, running meetings, not the funnest thing to do, but that goes back to leading people, right? So we got to have meetings. And then I guess my third thing, what is my third thing right now? Oh, fulfilling what we sell. So we sell a bunch of sales trainings. Well, I'm fulfilling those sales trainings. So let me take a step back. I'm fulfilling most of the sales training. We have another person who's also fulfilling sales training. Every bit as qualified as myself, just doesn't have the same brand.
Mhm.
So he does the lower tier sales training, but he's
Yeah.
every bit as qualified because he's my sub for my when I'm on vacation, whatever. So he's really good, but because he doesn't have to carry the same weight, he fulfills the lower tier pricing.
Yeah, he can. It's gonna take him time to finally fill in that space for you.
Yeah.
So that's
Yep.
why that's all you do in your business currently.
Yeah. It's either creating content, running, being in meetings, sometimes running, sometimes not, but being in meetings and fulfilling what we sell.
Did you struggle with being from going from an entrepreneur to a CEO? Because those are completely different things, and they require a different personality, a different everything.
Not really, because I enjoy all of them, right? It goes back to that superpower. So my superpower, I love learning and I love teaching. Those are my superpowers. So I'm consuming more than a book a month. I know we're not supposed to brag about that, right? Because it sounds terrible. We kind of laugh at the people that are reading a book a week, but I do consume about a book a month, right? So I love learning. I'm
Yeah,
obsessed with learning.
yeah.
And fortunately, I'm also a good teacher. That's why I get paid to teach, right? So I love learning and teaching. In the meetings, I love leading people. And then creating content. Probably the area I enjoy the least, if I'm being honest, but it's my biggest lever, right? Like I was talking about earlier, I'm always looking for that thing that's a small advantage that opens wide doors, that hinge,
Yeah.
that big lever. Creating content is the biggest lever we have. So I don't love it, but it's my number one income activity.
Wow. That's not everybody can say that. So
Yeah.
not a lot of people can say that that's their highest income activity.
Yeah.
That's incredible. What do you see your business going in the future in the next 2 years?
I would love to do more of the same. Truth be told, we're opening up a realtor division again, which sounds crazy, right? Because I hate being the realtor part. But we have all these motivated sellers that we're not buying their houses. And so for me, because I'm at Real and I haven't, which is basically an MLM for brokerages, it just makes sense for me to like recruit realtors to call these leads and pay me when they close. Right.
Mm,
So we've got that in the works. Is that for sure going to happen? I don't know, but we're taking steps towards that direction. And I also own a title company, right? So like it just makes sense it would serve the brokerage, the title company, and then and I'll monetize the leads that I already have.
wow,
So,
okay. I didn't know that you own a title company. I'd
yeah,
imagine how fast you can get papers done.
yeah.
That's insane.
Uh,
What's your turnover for like let's say they submit the documents on Monday.
mhm.
How fast can you get them?
Well, I mean, it's Arizona, so
Yeah.
everyone turns them pretty fast in Arizona. Like 48 hours, 72 hours is unacceptable in Arizona.
Oh wow.
So so in Arizona, I don't think me having a title company is an advantage
No?
because everyone's fast in Arizona. That's what I learned, right? Because we expanded to Oklahoma for a bit, we expanded in Mexico for a bit, and what we learned was that holy cow, Arizona's fast
Yeah.
because everyone else moves like molasses. So I mean, I had a homeowner call me one time, like 10 o'clock in the morning. It's like, I'm going foreclosure tomorrow. Can you buy my house? I was like, maybe. Let me check. And we clear title that day. So
Wow.
yeah, so it's not because I own a title company. It's just Phoenix operates at a different speed.
Okay, Phoenix like I mean that seems pretty impressive, but like I've had the experiences, but yes, the auction was going for the next day. We stopped the sale the day before. I
Mm-hmm.
think that is the biggest accomplishment wholesaling wise that I have ever done. But that's
That's
because we're
great.
in Iowa and we manage abstracts. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't know why we still do that. I don't know if you're familiar with those, but they just
Yeah, we don't do that.
that's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
So that over there, that's when you say 48 hours, because I only know so much and I can only talk about my market, but like 48 hours is fast. That is
Yeah.
impressive.
72 hours is unacceptable in Arizona.
72 hours, I'll say it's just fine. over here.
Yeah.
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 Wow. Steve, anything that you want to leave us with, that you will want to be, that you will want people to know about you, that you haven't talked about?
That I haven't talked about. Certified kung fu instructor, you know? So some kung fu was a hobby for a bit. And
Interesting.
then but then it got to a point where like to start taking it pretty seriously. And so yeah, I can teach kung fu lessons. I'm not saying I'm great, right? I'm not saying that I'll win a fight against a jiu-jitsu guy. I'm just saying that if we were in a bar, I feel totally fine.
Okay, that's fair. I train MMA,
Yeah.
so I,
Yeah.
I totally hear you.
Yeah. Like I'll be fine against an untrained person. Right? Against multiple untrained people, because like we drill like sometimes fighting 3 guys at a time, right? But in an octagon, I'd rather not walk in.
The best mechanism of defense is walking away, running.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fair, man. Steve, dude, thank you so much for your time. I learned a lot. This was amazing. I hope you had a good time with me.
I did.
And I hope that everybody that made it so far in this video, subscribe, hit the like button, and if they have any questions, go follow Steve on all social media. Follow the sales training.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know if you have.
Can I do a quick plug? Yeah, I would say if you guys got value in what we're talking about as far as the mindset of sales, so we do have salesdisruptors.com. That is where we sell our sales training. So if you guys are interested in that, salesdisruptors.com. It goes way greater in depth than what you and I just talked about earlier in the role play or in the kind of sharing session. So if you guys are interested in getting better at sales, we got that. And like I said, the experience I had this morning with my daughter, if you're good at sales, you can communicate and relate better with the people around you. So I think sales is so important.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah. Thank you so much, Steve. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
See you guys.